Hello there, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 484th edition of Tranquility du Jour, bringing you tranquility since 2005. Tranquility du Jour is a series of nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. In this week's edition, we're going to hear from Jessica Giles about Money Management 101, why there's so much emotion around money, and how mindset plays into the equation. So grab a journal and pen, as I think you're going to want to take notes on this one. Now, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who came out on Saturday for our virtual retreat. It was so much fun to be with you. And, also a big thank you to everyone who was like, I want to do these monthly, because I decided to go ahead and pull another one together. Based on your requests, typically I do these seasonally, and I hadn't done one in a couple of years. So I decided to go ahead. Right now with the quarantine, I think we need connection and inspiration and quiet time kind of more than ever. So save the date. The next one's going to be Saturday, May 2nd. These are noon to 3 Eastern time. We had people join from all over, from Mexico to Belgium to France to Spain to the UK to the Philippines, across the US and Canada. And I have to say, it was just an absolute honor to walk you through this process. And you'll be able to find the replay if anyone would like to purchase this. You can find that over at kimberlywilson.com/virtual retreats. And that's also where you will find information about our next one happening on May 2nd. Now, I also want to remind everyone that if for any reason you've been financially affected by everything that's going on in the world, that I am offering scholarships. So send me an email, hello@kimberlywilson.com, and I would love to consider you for one of the scholarships to these virtual retreats. I do think they're quite powerful to reset, connect, and create. Thanks to you, we were able to donate $500 to Meals on Wheels, which is helping seniors affected by COVID-19, and also Pigs and Pugs Project, which is my nonprofit, and this will go towards pig sanctuaries and pug rescues in need, which they all are very much so right now. Also, those of you who are interested in Provence, but nervous about traveling this year, I have pushed this retreat back to 2021. So June 5th through the 11th of 2021, we are off to Provence. And there are 2 rooms left. And of course, this is in the south of France. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful spot. And, not being able to travel right now, I'm like, I can just taste the croissants and smell the whiffs of lavender. And I cannot wait to get over there. Also, for those of you who are homebound right now, which is really all of us, I have pulled together a few resources, which you'll find 4 Tea with Kimberly videos that I did a couple of weeks ago that range from curbing anxiety to working from home to helping others at this time. And then also there's additional pieces. Last week I did a Tea with Kimberly on journal prompts, and I'll put a link to that over in the show notes, which you'll be able to find at kimberlywilson.com/484. And I just want you to know I'm offering a lot to the community right now just to support you, because I know this is confusing, discombobulating, overwhelming, and also just, there's a lot of grief around this and grieving our old normal, right? And adjusting to the new normal. So I'll be continuing to offer all sorts of things for you all. So if there is anything in particular in mind that you're like, I want this, let me know. But do stay tuned for another TDJ brunch, which is basically, even though it's called brunch, we are clearly gathering virtually and just sipping tea and connecting, and I'll have a topic to share. So stay tuned for the next one of those. And you can find information about these and replays about them over on the blog, kimberlywilson.com/blog. Now, without further ado, Jessica Giles is a highly regarded and sought after money, mastery, and manifestation coach. As a qualified accountant, Jess very quickly identified that money management and lodging tax returns was only one very small piece of the puzzle. For women in particular, financial empowerment and confidence is something that is widely lacking, and that is where Jess's unique skill set and genius zone come into powerful play. As a certified money mastery coach, she powerfully supports her clients across all areas of money, including money mindset, manifestation, law of attraction, money management, and wealth creation. You can learn more about Jess in the show notes. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
I am delighted to have you here, especially because it is tax time. And I know that people are anxious about money. So who better to chat with than you?
Thank you. Yes, money is one of those very emotive topics for women, and tax in particular can bring up a lot of stress and anxiety and a lot of money blocks and so forth. So I really love to approach that with an opportunity, in essence, that it comes up to be cleared. So this is a really great opportunity to bring closure to that chapter and really open up a new experience for sure.
Well, and so tell us a little bit about your background. A, you have an amazing accent, but B, you're an accountant, and then you're also a money mastery coach. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey into this?
Sure. Yes, I'd love to. So firstly, thank you. This is my 5:30 a.m. Australian accent. So, but yeah, it's really excited to be here. And yeah, so my story is quite quite long in places. So I'll give you the cut down version. But essentially, I was a 16-year-old high school dropout. I decided to leave high school. I was the daughter of a single mum, so there were a lot of financial stresses and pressures. And so I left high school. I was working in, now I'm pretty sure you perhaps call them a gas station or a petrol station, where you fuel up your car. And I was working there for about 6 months. And then after that, I thought, I really just felt a stronger calling to do something bigger with my life. Even as at 16, I kind of thought, I don't want this to just be it for my life kind of thing. So I went back to education, and one of the subjects that I touched on was accounting, and I just fell completely in love with it. So I started, so here in Australia, we have an institution called TAFE, which is sort of just a little bit different to university, but I did my certificate 3-4 diploma and advanced diploma in TAFE, which enabled me to then gain access to the university, the accounting university degree. So I started my university degree the week I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter. So it was a very busy and full time of my life. But anyhow, I pressed on and did my university degree and really just loved studying and learning. And I think that's that lifelong learning passion is something that I'm very passionate about in all areas. And so I got my university degree, and by this stage I had 2 daughters, and I was created my own bookkeeping and accounting business, so that I could have the freedom and flexibility to work from home around the children. And my clients were predominantly women business owners, and I noticed that as they handed over their financial documents and so forth, they were literally handing over their financial power. And I could really feel that distinct lack of understanding, empowerment, confidence. It was kind of like, here, take this and fix it for me, which perhaps your listeners will resonate with at this time of year. And so I really, and I created all of the spreadsheets and templates and all of the management systems, so to speak, for them to make to have an understanding of their financials. And at the end, I would hand them back their financial reports and all of that kind of thing. And I just knew that they were never going to, one, look at them again, which, there's so much important information in there for women to understand about their businesses and their financial position. And 2, I knew there was just such a distinct lack of education and empowerment and confidence around that. And what I find was a lot of women were creating expensive hobbies, rather than profitable businesses. They created an expensive hobby for themselves that was keeping them up at night. And so there was that going on. And then at the same time, I very suddenly overnight became a single mum to my 2 daughters. So that brought about a whole kind of, I call it my spiritual awakening process. And I uncovered the mindset element of money and manifestation and law of attraction and clear, understanding what my money story was, which I'd never even given any thought to in the past. So that combined with the lack of financial empowerment and education amongst my clients resulted in my clients were my first kind of coaching guinea pigs. And I was like, here, I'm learning this, and look at this amazing things that are happening in my life now. Can I support you with this? And they created amazing results and transformations. And it was, I kind of stumbled across my soul work by accident. And so it grew from there. And now the accounting side of my business has wound down. And whilst I still bring those skills and expertise to the work I do with my clients, it's very much based around financial empowerment, coaching, whilst also, bringing it all together into a really cohesive unit, because my philosophy is that you can't sit on a meditation mat and manifest $1 million, but you also can't outmanage a bad mindset. So it's when the two of those elements come together really powerfully that creates an unstoppable financial rising within women. And that's what I bounce out of bed for every morning.
Oh, this is so interesting. And I love the way you are combining the two, right? Because I think so often we can be like, I'm a money coach, and yet maybe not really have the background, right, of all the training that goes into accounting, or vice versa. Like you said, you can have all the training, the numbers, the data, and yet there's so much emotion tied into this. So it's, you're not really able to encapsulate that if you're just focusing on kind of the left brain side of this. So I love your blending of the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what my clients love about working with me. They say 1 minute we're talking about, pricing a new product, ensuring profitability. And then the next thing we're clearing a money block and a money story from when we were a child. So I really do believe that, whilst focusing on one is powerful, it's when you kind of give attention and energy to all areas that it's just, it's really transformational, and it not only has you feel amazing about money, but then you can then channel that energy into the powerful actions that you need to be taking to ensure that you're creating the results that you desire.
Now, why is mindset and emotion such an important piece to look at around money, right? Because it kind of seems like, you either have profit or loss, or you spend more than you make, or you make more than you spend, and that's just how it works out, right? But yet it goes so much deeper. So how does that play out? And how do you encourage listeners to really kind of get in touch with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I find is a lot of people are focusing on the outcomes. So they're focusing on the bank balance. They're focusing on, the lack of profitability, or the lack of a steady flow of new and reinvesting clients. And so we're kind of looking at these things that are happening external to us. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it's what's happening internally that creates that external result. So that external result, such as the bank account and so forth, is merely a reflection of what is happening within you. And what is happening within you is a result of many different things. So our money story is in place by the age of 8 years of old, when our critical faculty is formed. So by the age of 8, we have decided what we believe to be true about money, about relationships, about bodies, spirituality, religion, all of these kind of key areas of our life. And so I often giggle about, but it really is no laughing matter. The world is full of 8-year-olds running around with credit cards and bank loans.
Right.
The masses haven't done the work to kind of realize that this is just a story they've been telling themselves. And I often reflect to my clients that you just perhaps went to the wrong school in some areas. In terms of a lot of childhoods are sort of remembered by and the stresses and the pressures and the language, or even just the energy that was used around money in a lot of instances was quite negative, in terms of we can't afford that, or money doesn't grow on trees, or, we've all walked into a room where you've just felt this, like, could cut the air with a knife kind of energy. And so even, 80% of our language is nonverbal. 80% of our communication is nonverbal. And so money has, in a lot of instances, just had this stressful, negative, not talked about, but the stress is there kind of energy about it. And so what happens is, until we do the work to kind of undo that, heal that, release that, and essentially replace those stories and thoughts and beliefs with updated and aligned ones that are in alignment with abundance that you desire, such as a plentiful stream of income, more than enough money left over, paying your bills with ease ahead of time, it's kind of this real push-pull. You definitely have the desire to create a profitable, thriving business, but all of the kind of internal workings in a lot of way are working against you.
Yeah. The internal workings, I think, is just such an important piece. And, as we think about, okay, how do we best tap into those and make a shift, right? So that because I think one of the pieces you said earlier that's so important is you can't just sit on a meditation mat and be like, okay, I am manifesting $1 million, right? It's not just mindset. It goes deeper into our belief systems and all of that. And so, what do you encourage listeners, women, to really do to begin to dig that up and shift it?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start with, the first thing, awareness is the first step to change. So when my ladies start exploring this work, I always encourage you to do so from a place of childlike wonder, rather than being, oh my God, I've got to fix this, oh my goodness, it's kind of really around, oh, isn't it interesting that I feel this stress and anxiety when it comes to going grocery shopping? Or isn't it interesting that I'm worried I'm not going to attract 5 new clients this month? Or because when you bring that energy of openness, it kind of already starts to remove the emotion around it. Because when you realize that what you've created is simply a situation and a reflection of what you've thought, how you felt, what actions you've taken, and what energy has been behind those actions, you can give yourself permission to shift that as well and create a new experience. So the first thing I recommend is really just to feel into and start to notice, perhaps carry a notebook with you, which I feel a lot of your listeners, Kimberly, would already do. We're all big notebook fans, but keep a notebook close by and just kind of note down what thoughts and feelings you have about money. Note down any observations you have if you sort of see somebody driving a fancy car or, something. Notice what triggers you about money, because what I find one of the biggest blocks that women have when it comes to creating wealth and financial freedom in their life is that they desire it, but then subconsciously we're judging it because of the conditioning we've been exposed to. So, for example, you desire to create financial freedom, but the languaging that you've heard and the energy you've picked up on throughout your life is actually negative towards anybody who has created that for themselves, in terms of, wouldn't that be nice? Or rich people are greedy, or, just kind of starting to allow these pieces to present themselves to you for you to heal and clear. And the first way to do that is to start to note them down. And as you note them down, you're actually already clearing that process. And from there, you can then decide, okay, what do I choose? What thoughts and beliefs do I choose to replace these negative ones with? And of course, like anything, it's a muscle. And so it's going to feel a little bit wobbly at first, and it's always awkward before it's elegant. But this is such a beautiful process of you being a conscious creator and redesigning the relationship that you choose to have with money.
I love that. Awkward before elegant. Right? Because anytime you start something new or you try something on, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awkward. Like, I can't, I'm not quite getting it. And so I love that. I think that's a wonderful mantra.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, what happens is our human psychology and our brain is kind of wired to stop us from doing the things that are going to advance us, which is quite crazy to think about. But what most people will do is, for example, two of the things that I recommend, as sort of first steps for women to take in this area is one, to track your income, because what you focus on expands. So every single day you want to be tracking your income either via a spreadsheet or a notebook, on a whiteboard. It really doesn't matter where it is. It's just that you're bringing your focus to it. And even if it's a zero, you still write in the date with zero next to it, because it's kind of, one, intrinsically motivating, and two, again, what you focus on expands. So when you're focusing on money flowing into you, that's what you're going to create more of. So that's one thing I always recommend as a daily non-negotiable. And the second thing is, whenever you feel yourself having anxiety, either paying for groceries or utilities or wherever you find yourself tightening around money, I always invite my clients, when you're making that transaction, to say to yourself out loud or quietly to yourself if you're around lots of people, is there's always plenty more where that came from. So you're reminding yourself and starting to shift your relationship that there's overflow, there's abundance, there's plenty more money where that came from. And what I find is women will go off and they'll do that for a couple of days. But what we tend to do is we then stop doing those things before they get to become an ingrained habit. You don't think about brushing your teeth every morning and night, or you don't think about drinking water or eating lunch because it's such an ingrained habit for you. So this is kind of the energy and attention that's needed to begin with to create this new habit, and then it will carry on for itself. But this is where the mindset part is critically important, because people start to label themselves as lazy or procrastination, or it's just not meant for me. And it's simply the case that we need to sort of clear these mindset stories that stop you from being able to do the things that are going to move you in the direction that you want to go.
Well, and I love this idea that you are tracking the income and, kind of reminding yourself that there's more where this came from. I mean, and ideally there is whenever we're buying groceries or what have you. But, what about kind of tracking expenses? I know sometimes I'll go through a phase where I'll like write down everything I spend that day. It's like, soy matcha latte here, or, grabbed a quick bite there. And it is shocking, I think, how much adds up. And so I just wondered if you encourage also the tracking of expenses. Do we look at that daily? How do we kind of break up things like rent or mortgage, into these daily expenses, if so?
Yeah, absolutely. So I very much encourage my clients to know your financial baseline. So what that means is, I'm not such a fan of the word budget per se, because I find generally that drives people into an elimination and then overindulging kind of thing, because they're like, yes, I'm going to limit this. I'm not going to buy my, my daily coffee or whatever the case is. And then, before you know it, you're having 5 of something that you hadn't planned on. So it's not so much about budget, but knowing what your financial baseline is. So knowing what your core expenses are. And I'm absolutely, it never ceases to amaze me how many people don't know what their weekly expenses or outgoings are. But I'm very much connected to mindful consumption, and everything is mindful. The income that's coming in, you need to be connected to and grateful for. The money that's going out, and here's the sort of key indicator is, are you feeling in control of this? So, for example, when I track my expenses, and yes, I think when you start doing this work, daily is a really great idea, because it's going to help you to get that awareness. I kind of use 3 highlighters. So I'll use green, orange, and red. And simply what that means is green, yes, feels good, in alignment, exactly what I feel on board with this, and I'll highlight that expense in green. And then others that are kind of like, yeah, maybe good, no, maybe don't feel so great about that, I'll highlight in orange. And those that are like, this is not in alignment, not moving me towards where I want to go, I will highlight in red. So what that does is it really starts to, again, information over a period of time will really start to show to you the areas that you desire to create some change and transformation in.
And then I guess if you use, because I love the paper and pen and using the different colored highlighters, of course, I love that. And I use mint.com. So, I guess it does something similar where it'll tell you if you're within budget, if, it's like yellow if you're like on the line, and then red if you're over. But what about for people who kind of do this digitally? Do you have like a system that you recommend?
Yeah, so I use Xero, which is my accounting program, and so I find that really valuable also. But in terms of tracking and so forth, you can certainly be allocating, those expenses to different accounts, and then you can run expense reports and sort of see where your spending is at with that. What I like to have is kind of a monthly focus. So what's your kind of monthly financial focus this year? Is it on, eating, preparing more meals at home and not eating out so much? Or is it on increasing a revenue stream in a certain area? But I find having attention on one area often creates a flow-on effect of healing other areas, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're being mindful and connected about the food that you're consuming, you're naturally going to be mindful and connected about other areas of your finances as well. So I find that's a really great way for women who are a little bit overwhelmed by all of it to bring it down to and narrow the focus in one area, which will naturally create momentum and flow in other areas. So that's a really great way to kind of handle that. And then in terms of digitally, I find even literally a confused mind says no. So if women haven't had a system, so to speak, as such now, anything overcomplicated is going to be, a little overwhelming for them, and they will give up on it before it gets a chance to become a habit. So I would start with something really simple like a spreadsheet that literally has date in one column, so you can pop the date in, description in another, so you can write in what the description was. If you want to track and kind of note where it was, where the transaction occurred, and then the amount. And then perhaps in the column next to that, you would have the kind of the green, red, orange scale, so that you can sort of see where your mindfulness and connection is in those areas. But less is more when it comes to this, I find, particularly if it's not something that you've been doing. Just getting those small wins on the board, building up that belief and really becoming a strong custodian of your money in that way will create a lot of momentum towards being more empowered and equipped.
Yes, yes. I think these are really helpful, kind of tangible reminders for our listeners and for myself. And, as we kind of continue to navigate, right? So we've done the tracking, we're like more aware of our, what did you use instead of budget? Financial baseline. I like that. So as we're more aware of that, okay, what can we do to then increase money flow? Like, is there something, I think we get it that it's like, okay, you do a side hustle, or, you add a new product, or, there are kind of basic things that one can do, but I'm just curious, is there anything that, say we're looking at it and we're like, ooh, my expenses are a little more than I'm making. What's kind of the number one never fail way to increase money flow, like immediately?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things with that. One is you need to start with why. Start with why this is important to you, what it represents, because money needs to be connected. Money flows through the path of least resistance. Money is quite lazy in that regard. So when you are clear on why you desire more money, what this means for you, and beyond, I want to earn more than earn more than I spend, or I need more money. Like, I love to kind of keep asking the why But why do you want that? Why do you want that? And keep going deeper and deeper until you really feel like you're connected into the core of why being more abundant is of importance to you. So everything again needs to start with the desire, start with the story, start with the belief. So we really kind of want to hone in on that and be really clear on why this increase in money is important to you. And it needs to come from an aligned place of desire rather than a fear, because I'm sure we all have a memory of where it's easy to manifest money for the thing that's fun. Perhaps as a child, it was a concert, as a teenager, your early memories of creating money. Perhaps it was to do with a CD or a vinyl or a concert ticket or a particular pair of jeans or something. When you have a white hot desire for something, it has no choice but to show up. So that's kind of the energy that we want to have behind this increase in money. So energy always comes first. And then beyond that, everyone on this planet would say that they desire more money. However, money loves to have a job to do. So it's taking that energy and then channeling it into, okay, well, let's take out a piece of pen and paper. What is the amount of money that you desire to call in? And say, for example, people might have an arbitrary number come to mind, like $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is. It's really okay. And where's that money going? And down to the very last dollar, having an exact, clear purpose and plan of what you want that money to do for you. Because money doesn't love to just flow in and sit around. Money is very much energy and it's designed to flow. And so money will flow to the path of least resistance to the person who is prepared, open, excited by the flow, the potential of money flowing to them. You cannot manifest money from an energy of, I need this, come to me. We can all reflect on a time we've needed money and it hasn't been there. So clearly that's not enough for money to flow, but it's that aligned connection and purpose to why, the deeper reason why this is important to you, together with that purpose and that plan, and then infusing that anticipation and excitement and belief into all of the actions you take, because every action you take has an energy attached to it. And so if you're taking an action with an energy of fear or I hope this works or, a real kind of uncertainty to it, that's the result that you're going to get. So this is why we want to do the energetic work first to get you excited, aligned, passionate, anticipation, excitement about it, so that's the energy you're infusing into every action you then take to be a match for that money flowing to you.
Beautiful. Such great reminders. And, I think the tricky thing for me, whenever I hear the word manifestation, it makes me think of, did you read the book or do you know the book, The Secret?
I've heard a lot of it and I've kind of picked up on little quotes, but I haven't actually read it, to be honest.
Yeah. What's funny is I had the book. I actually didn't read it either, but it was a phenomenon. And, I think for a lot of people, the word manifestation, or at least for me, it got a little turned off in the fact that it was like, I am visualizing a Tiffany's necklace and then it appears on my neck. It's like where it's, and, very material focused, which I don't think is what we're talking about at all here. And so I'm curious, how do you encourage people who maybe struggle with the word manifestation? Because as you said, you cannot sit on a yoga mat or a meditation mat and be like, I want $1 million. It doesn't work that way, although it is helpful to have a mindset that you deserve $1 million, right? So can you explain the manifestation piece a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of those funny, tricky words for sure. And a lot of people have I hear a lot of, it's very woo-woo, or, there's not a lot of great connection with it. So, and that's completely fine. But what I think people don't realize is that you are actually manifesting in every moment. So manifestation is purely your energy, your thoughts, your beliefs reflecting back to you. And everything has a vibration and like attracts like. So for example, when you sleep in past your alarm and you spill your breakfast and you kick your toe and you get every stoplight and, because your energy is at a certain rate. And so throughout the day, that's your baseline of what you're attracting to yourself. So when you realize, and then when you think about a certain song and it comes on the radio, or you think about a person and then they phone you, this is where a lot of people get a little freaked out when they start to realize that, hang on a minute, I've been manifesting all my life based upon my energy and based upon my thoughts. So then what it becomes is this beautiful dance and permission that, okay, so if I can manifest things I don't want, how about I start to actually play with and co-create and connect with what I desire to create with this energy, and then start to use it in that way. So it really helps when people sort of realize that they're actually manifesting all the time, whether they notice it or not, and that this is their opportunity to be more mindful and connected to what they desire to experience.
So helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And exactly as you mentioned, the material things, I'm a big believer you can't manifest a particular person or a particular necklace or something like that, but manifesting is very much about this or something better or more aligned. And this is why it's so important to know why you want what you want and what the deeper emotion and feeling is, because that is your manifesting superpower. So, for example, there's absolutely nothing wrong with desiring a Tiffany necklace, and there's no judgment at all around that. But it's, okay, well, what does that represent to me? Is it pride and success for reaching a money goal, or do I desire it because it feels luxurious and abundant? And then the quickest way that you can get to that Tiffany necklace, for example, let's just play around and say that it is luxury and abundance that you desire to experience, is becoming a match for luxury and abundance, and not waiting for luxury and abundance to come to you to let you sort of own that. So, and it's realizing that if luxury and abundance, for example, is something you desire, how can you be luxury and abundance today? How can you give that gift to yourself? And that's actually going to really help you to fast track that manifestation also.
So helpful. Thank you for explaining that. That makes way more sense to me. And I can totally picture those mornings, where you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong. And you've got that energy, almost like that frenetic energy, where it's like my purse handle gets caught on the door going out, and you're just like, just everything. And you're like, is this my life? Am I on candid camera? Like, is this a joke? And so to be able to backpedal and be like, okay, I have the opportunity to regroup and kind of, recreate kind of what I would like the rest of the day to look like. And it is not this.
Absolutely. It's that connection and mindfulness. And, at the same time, having a bit of humor for yourself, that's your human experience, and I had a similar thing, even as a money coach and all of that, I'm still very much human. And so yesterday the dentist was running an hour late because he had to do an emergency extraction before my appointment. And then, it was just kind of, one of those days, so to speak. And then went out for ice cream with my daughters. And then I'd had my eye on this table with really beautiful comfy chairs next to the window. And then somebody went and sat there, and I was just like, oh my goodness, today is not my day. But it's kind of realizing that in that moment you have the opportunity to choose again.
Yes.
And so manifestation and mindset and all of that doesn't mean that you become some Jedi master that's not impacted by anything around you. It's very much just allowing yourself to have that human experience, but with a little bit more love and grace and connection to what you desire on the other side of those challenging times.
Yes. I thank you. That's such good reminders. And my last question, well, I have two more questions for you, but before we kind of wrap up with regard to money, is there anything in particular that we haven't covered that you're like, oh my gosh, your listeners must know this?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that I really want to share is that your past does not equal your future. And where you have come from, what you've experienced, whatever situation you've created until this point, is not a reflection of your skills, your talent, your worthiness, anything like that. Not, I often hear from my clients, the universe just doesn't like me, or it's it's absolutely nothing to do with that. And, if I share my story of transitioning from a high school dropout and, not at all coming from a family of wealth or abundance and that kind of thing. And I share that so that women can understand that it doesn't matter and have their own connection to, it doesn't matter where you've come from, what you've experienced until this point, where you're going and what you now choose to give your energy to and what you now are consciously creating is far more valuable and important than anything that's happened in the past. So the number one thing I really want to share is that, your past does not equal your future, and the universe does love you, and I love you, and everybody wants you to have that abundant experience that you desire, and it is completely possible and available and indeed meant for you.
I love that. That is so good. And I feel loved. It's nice to hear that, right? My last question for you, and I really liked this in your bio, or it's on your about page, I believe, like hot chocolates, notebooks, flowers, and candles are non-negotiables to me, and I feel you, honey. And my question for you, and I wonder if these are pieces of it, but how do you find tranquility in your everyday, right? The name of this podcast, Tranquility du Jour. So what do you do to make sure that you're infusing your days with tranquility?
Yes, I love that. So for me, I'm so big on this. And this is what attracted me to you and your brand and content, Kimberly, is really this beautiful bringing tranquility to the moments. And so for me, that currently looks like I like to be up before my daughters in the morning, and that's my time to set my energy and tone for the day. So really around, a hot chocolate or a tea, candle, meditation, essential oils, journaling my intentions for the day, handing over anything from yesterday that I may still be carrying. I find allowing myself to have that start to the day just really sets the tone and energy and takes care of my vibration throughout the day. And then throughout the day is realizing, like in those moments in the dentist and that kind of thing, is where am I not connected to myself, and how can I bring tranquility to that moment? So, for example, when the dentist was going to be an hour late, my daughters and I walked down to the playground down the road, and they had a play on the swings and so forth. And I, really focused on being mindful and present and breathing in the beautiful fresh air and having that exchange and time with my daughters. So it's kind of, starting my day out in that way, checking in consistently. And then at night, I always love to wrap my day up in a similar way, just kind of handing over everything from the day. I'm a big believer in never going to bed without a request to your subconscious. So whether that looks like, please show me how to be a present and loving mother or daughter or sister or partner, anything that I kind of feel I've been challenged about by that day, kind of handing it over and asking for guidance to transcend that. And then very much, kind of finishing with gratitude as well. So regardless of, what the day has held, what am I grateful for? And I love all of these touch points of just staying connected and conscious around who you're being and what you're creating and where your energy is going throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. And the piece I really resonated with too. I love doing gratitude at night before bed, and also going to bed with a request to the subconscious is such a great idea, because I've often heard, like, say when you're struggling, should I do this? Should I do that? Why can't I see the light on this issue? It's like sometimes if you ask yourself this before you go to bed, like, okay, please help me sort out XYZ. That somehow that the mind is working in the background, and it allows us to actually be more clear on it, the next day or soon, because otherwise it's like we're beating our head against the wall doing the typical pro-con list or what have you, versus like letting it kind of simmer and the subconscious take over.
Absolutely. And what I find is the number one thing, particularly for women that have businesses, is we very much become grounded in, having to do everything and micromanage and manipulate outcomes and hustle and get things done. And that's kind of can become the frantic energy around it. And so in that moment when we're so focused on all of that, we forget that we're actually loved and supported and that we can ask for support either from divine guidance or God, source, universe, whatever it is that you resonate with, people around you, from a coach. We're so ingrained in having to do things and figure it out. And particularly when you're serving other people as well, that it's really, really easy to forget that you are meant to and allowed to ask and receive guidance, support, abundance, everything that you desire in that moment.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. This has been such a fun chat, and I really appreciate all that you've shared, all the great ideas and, kind of examples of really like how this has even worked in your own life. So it's an absolute treat. So thank you. And thank you for getting up at this ungodly hour.
No, thank you for having me. The pleasure's all mine, and it's such an honor to connect with you and to be able to support your audience in this way. And I'm really, really grateful to have had this chat, and it's been lots of fun and perfect way to start my day in a really great energy and vibration. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So mentioned in the podcast, you will find a link to Jess's Facebook page, to her website, and to her darling Instagram page. You'll also find links to the Teas with Kimberly that I mentioned, and these are all over on our YouTube channel. Let's connect. If you have a moment to pin a review of this show or any of my books on Amazon or iTunes or Goodreads, I would love, love, love to share it with listeners, and you can find details on this at kimberlywilson.com/review, and I will send out a sparkly Paris postcard as a thank you. Also, you can find all our old episodes at kimberlywilson.com/podcast, and there's also an app for iPhones and Androids. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app, such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Overcast. And a reminder to sign up for Love Notes. So this is something that I send out weekly, and it's just a little dose of inspiration straight to your inbox. And that's at kimberlywilson.com/love notes. You can also find a link to my 6 books, including my planner. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And shop seasonless, vegan, locally made, eco-friendly fashion, TranquilIT. Thank you guys so much for being here and tuning in. I can't wait to hear what your takeaways are from this week's podcast. And I look forward to connecting with you again in 2 weeks. Have a great, great rest of your week. Namaste. Thank you.